However you are and whenever you are, welcome, good souls of the planet and beyond, to Paranormal Now. I'm Alan B. Smith. Join us as we traverse the cosmic highway of paranormal portals and tantalizing turnoffs. Joining me tonight for the full show is Melanie Kirchdorfer, a close encounter experiencer during the 1969 Berkshires UFO event. Melanie has a fascinating story to share with us, and of course, we'll have a lot of questions as we explore the nearly unbelievable aspects of reality as we do on Paranormal Now. Later in the last half hour, call-in lines will be open, so just call the Paranormal Radio app line at 855-472-5483. Wait for your cue to call in the last 30 minutes. Stand by. Bill, our producer, will bring you on, and then you can ask myself or the guest your question. And again, that number is 85KGRA live. And of course, as you have comments throughout the show, you can join us in the chat on Facebook or on YouTube as we stream this live event. And as always, on the KGRA chat platform as well. Just go to KGR Radio website, and there's a whole slew of very cool people hanging out there all the time, many of which are crossing over now to YouTube. I see you all there. Hi, everyone. How are you? Renee, Andy, thanks for joining. Ron, Charles, it's great to see everybody here tonight. Thank you. And I had to share with you something I'm really excited about. And in the Sheffield UFO Park, UFO Monument Park, there will be a plaque added to the park that Tom Reed is having made. And I very humbly can share with you that, and gratefully, that my name will be on that plaque with Paranormal Now, along with Bill Skywatcher. And I'll ask Melanie in a minute. I think Melanie, his name is going to be on the plaque as well, but I'll ask her, along with others like Travis Walton, the Unsolved Mysteries, and Ancient Aliens, so many more. So it's really quite the honor to be a part of that. So I thank Tom Reed for including me in that. And if you haven't checked out the park itself, like you really should. It's very cool. If you're in the Northeast area, you can just go to Sheffield, Massachusetts. It's really pretty. And if you want to find out more, just go to ufopark.org. And it got this really, really well balanced write-up in Upcountry magazine. It was really surprising because it was the most succinct summary of everything that occurred that led up to this park. The work Tom and so many others have done, including someone related to our guest tonight, I believe, adding a park bench. Again, I'll have to ask Melanie in just a moment. And really helping to beautify and maintain and care for this park. And what I like about it is you can go to the Roswell Festival, and that's fun, right? There's a lot of celebration. There's somewhat entertainment. There are speakers. There's a lot of kitsch things you can buy, T-shirts and hats, and that's fantastic. I appreciate that celebration, and the more the better. But considering how most experiences take place for people, whether it's just a sighting in the sky or a more close encounter, oftentimes it takes place in natural settings. And to be in a park that honors a UFO event in a more serene, reflective sort of way, I think is something that the community has needed. A place where you can go sit in a park bench, look at the stars at night, or just, hang out peacefully with others who have similar interests, or just because you want to go to a park because it's pretty, and reflect on these mysteries. And I think to do it in that way is most welcome. I love the celebrations. I love the congregations. But this is a place where you can go and reflect on not just this event, but the whole phenomena in general. So if you're in the Northeast area, definitely go to Sheffield and check out UFO Monument Park. All right. So one more reminder before we continue on. In the last half hour, if you want to call the Paranormal Radio app line. That number is 855-472-5483. You can follow me on Twitter at paranormal_now and on Instagram at paranormal_now. And now I'm going to bring out our guest, Melanie Kirchdorfer. How are you? Welcome.
I'm fine, Alan. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for having me. Sorry about my computer glitch. I always have a problem with it here. But yeah, the park is absolutely beautiful. My husband and I, Henry, we were down there 2 weekends. Actually, it was last Saturday we were down there. And Henry built a beautiful picnic table. It's in the shape of a UFO, actually. And I think 12 people it can seat. Mm-hmm. It's really beautiful down there. It's a very spiritual place along the Housatonic River. And anyone that can get down there should really do so. I think you would enjoy it.
Yeah, it is a spiritual thing. I think that was the word I was searching for, because there's something about these events that cause us to think about our place in the universe, who we are, and so there is a spiritual aspect to all this.
I feel that way. I loved being down there, and it's very peaceful. And there were quite a few people early in the morning, too. We were there very early in the morning. We took the back road down to get there. It's a nice dirt road, and there's also a beautiful old covered bridge that's there. And just being there early in the morning was lovely. We really enjoyed it. It's nice. We got to meet Ryan, who's the caretaker of it, who's a wonderful person. Tom's done a great job. He was going to try and be on the show tonight as well, but he can't make it, unfortunately. He's a great guy. He's worked very hard to put this together, the park together.
He has. And what I appreciated so much about Tom is the way he handles the PR aspect of it, and that there isn't this. He doesn't speak in hyperbole. He's measured in how he discusses the event and everything involved with it, and I think that's the responsible thing to do. He's not out there, selling, books and not that that's a bad thing. I think that's great. If you can make a living being a ufologist, that's fantastic and telling your story. But I just think that because of the legal historical significance of the event, you do have to be a little bit more careful with how you discuss things, I think. And he's done that well.
Well, it's a historical event. That's what it is. And neither Tom or I are making any money off of this. If anything, we've put money out on this. And I had no intention of ever coming forward. If anything, I was told to keep my mouth quiet about it. Growing up, I could never talk about it. Tom actually has been the one that he would come to me and say, well, would you like to do a radio show? If you don't want to, I understand, but there's this date. And I would think about it. And he said, just keep your mind open. If you'd like to, you can do it. And I never really wanted to, but he said, I think you'll feel better if you talk about it, Melanie, because it was very traumatic. It's not something that was fun. And I found that the more I did talk about it, because he's someone that makes you feel better when you do talk about it. So I was able to come out of my shell by talking about it. He's very kind.
Right.
He's somebody to talk to about this. So by talking about it, it made it easier for me to be able to talk about it.
Well, I think that's like any extreme experience that we have. We as human beings being social, I think it's built into our wiring that we need other people that we can talk about those shared experiences with. That's the whole premise of Alcoholics Anonymous and these other programs. There's just talk therapy, beginning with Freud. That's just something that we need to do. Now for you, and we'll talk more about the actual experience itself, but for you, was it negative? Was it positive? Somewhere in between? Was it a trauma that you had to deal with?
It was a trauma for me because I did not have the support system that Tom had. His mom was very supportive for him. This happened to me early as a child. It started when I was 4 years old. Fortunately, I had my sister who also saw that I started seeing a little gray man would come into my room. There were others, but especially one would come into my room to come and get me as a child at 4. And my sister also saw this little person. She would describe it as a troll. It looked like a troll to her, but it wasn't a troll. It was a little gray man. It would leave her alone, but it would take me. And I would try and tell my parents that this was happening, and my sister would say, "She's not lying, Mom, this is happening." But I actually got locked in the basement one night because they just wanted me to shut up about it. They didn't want to believe me.
Wow.
And I kept getting punished over and over again. And it was a horrible time for me. I didn't want to go to school. It was just a nightmare. It was traumatic, very, very traumatic for me.
Well, the trauma then isn't just what happened to you. It's how it was handled afterwards. People react to
Exactly. It was so bad that we had an attic in our bedroom, and my dad actually put locks on the attic door because they knew there was something going on, so that there's at least 4 of these bolted locks on the attic door. So they had to have known that there must have been something going on, that they had to appease me by putting these locks on the door to make me feel safer, but they just didn't know how to deal with it or what to deal with. And I actually found out after the Netflix film came out that a girl that I went to school with, her sister that was older than her, actually the same age as my sister, who lived down the river from me, down the street. I lived on Russell Street. They lived on Dresser Ave. It was just a couple of streets down, but right along the river as well, because it always took place along the river or along water, it seems, all these events. It was happening to her sister as well. But her parents believed her. So they actually moved out of that house. So once again, she had a support system, and it stopped once they moved out of that house. But it was unbelievable when she called me up and she told me that story, because that never made it to the Netflix film. That was cut out of the film. So she didn't hear that on the Netflix film. She just happened to call me up and tell me that story. And it was unbelievable that she was telling me the story that was happening to her sister at the same time it was happening to me on Russell Street. I couldn't believe it. So it just reconfirmed to me that it really was happening to me. But my sister always confirmed it to me that it was happening to me.
So do you think your parents, they just didn't know what it was, and because they didn't know how to handle it, they just shut you down? Do you think it was out of a fear that they didn't want to face speculation of what it could be?
I have no idea. I got a phone call about 2 years ago from my mother telling me that I needed to go to the Historical Society to tell the Historical Society about the whole 69 incident, about what had happened. And I said, "What are you talking about? I thought that you told me that was just a shooting star that we saw that night." And she said, "Oh, no, that was really a UFO." And I said, "My whole life you've been telling me that it was a shooting star." And she said, No, that was a UFO that we really saw. I just didn't want you to be all frightened about it. And it was at that point that I knew that I had to go for PTSD therapy, which I went for months. I went for extensive PTSD hypnosis therapy, and you have to go for 4 weeks to even prepare yourself. You don't go for one time to be hypnotized.
Yeah.
You have to be prepared to see if you can even handle it before they'll even hypnotize you.
Mm-hmm.
Because you relive what you went through. I would call my sister up and start singing songs that we would sing at 4 years old, 5 years old. And my sister was like, oh my God, Melanie, I have goosebumps because I can't believe that you can remember what you're saying. I could remember the color of the bedspreads in our bedroom, the pink chenille bedspreads in our bedroom back then.
Yeah.
She's like, you're scaring me. This is too scary what you're telling me. And then she could remember too, because it's like looking at a movie, a film in front of you. And then the hypnotist wanted me to continue, but I was seeing so much that I had to take a break from it because it was so
Yes.
frightening. My husband filmed it. He filmed the hypnosis of it. So I have them.
I understand. Now, is the hypnosis itself like a re-traumatizing experience for you, or is there some sort of technique that they use to buffer that angst?
I couldn't watch all of them. My husband watched a lot of them, but
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't watch all of them. It came back. A majority of it came back, but like I said, I did not want to continue. I might continue someday, but I learned enough. To
Right.
confirm that my parents lied to me, and I have a very strained relationship. I don't have a relationship with my parents anymore. I'm
Mm-hmm.
very close with my sister. I love my sister, and I'm so grateful to her that she watched my back my whole life.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm
you're
very
very lucky.
close.
You're very lucky you have that. Now, do you think that your parents were just of an older generation mindset, where you just didn't tell your kids things, and they just didn't know better?
I don't know why they did what they did to me. Like my sister said to me, I don't know why they did that, Melanie. You didn't want to go to school. They knew that was going on with you, and you used to go to school and then pretend you were going to school, and then you would hide out in the back porch because you were so scared.
Yeah.
She said that after the Netflix came out, my mother had said to my sister that she's glad that you finally told your truth. I haven't talked to her since the whole thing, to be honest with you. But I've spoken to my sister, and my sister said that she's happy that I finally was able to tell my truth.
And does doing that publicly help you as well?
It does, because for all those years she told me that I was being dramatic, and
Mm.
that don't talk about it. And can you imagine being a kid and being locked in a dark basement? I mean, we talked about that so many times, even as an adult, and she'd be, well, we didn't know what else to do. She would find me sleepwalking. She found me sleepwalking. And if you find somebody sleepwalking and they're telling you that there's someone coming in your room and taking you, wouldn't you take it a little bit more serious?
Yeah. Well, whether it's something fantastically real or whatever, something more easily explainable, of course you should address that. I agree, and I'm really sorry that happened to you, because it's like anyone who goes through a traumatic experience, they're sort of re-traumatized when society denies them. It's you see that with rape victims when the police don't take them seriously, and it makes it worse. So we have to take this break. When we get back on the other side, Melanie, we'll talk more about the story, and I'd like to know how along the way, you've processed each step of that, and um, what you take away from it. Is there something meaningful out of that experience? This is Alan B. Smith for Paranormal Now on KGRA Radio. We'll be right back with Melanie Kirchdorfer. We'll see you on the flip side.
On and again, the signs keep on coming, they point to the end, but I hold on so tight.
Mainstream media's most wanted. KGRAradio.com.
Lost in a bad way, I've gotta let you go. You're supposed to be so close to me, I'm mostly that goes to me, yeah. And if you chose to see the most of me, you'd hopefully.
All right, we are back. Thank you all for joining us once again on Paranormal Now. This is Alan B. Smith, your grateful host. So taking us out of the break is Septembrio. If you want to find out more about their music, just go to Septembrio, spelled with a Y.com. And as always, we want to remind you to sign up for the Telepath on KGR Radio. This is the best source right now for your weekly and daily updates on what is going on in the paranormal and ufological world. And of course, later on, we'll open up the phone lines, and that number is 855-472-5483 or 85-KGRA Live. We'll open up those lines, listen to your paranormal radio app Q in the last 30 minutes of tonight's show. And I'm happy to share that while I'll not be here with you on October 3rd, we will have guest host Carol Carl joining us, and her guest is to be announced. And as soon as we find out, I'll share that with you maybe next week. And for those of you who don't know Carol Carl, she is the host of Behind the Obsidian Curtain on KGRA Radio. All right, we're back with Melanie. So, Melanie, what is your takeaway today with what happened to you?
Today, I think that if anything, it's made me feel that I'm a survivor. I'm a stronger person because of it. I'm very close with my sister. She's so cute. Every time she calls me, because I used to climb in her bed every night. She was my hero, my savior. She called me today, and before she hangs up, she always says to me, she goes, "Okay, spoon," because she used to spoon me at night. So that's how she hangs up the phone every time. She goes, "Okay, spoon tonight." I love my sister dearly.
No, that's really, really, really sweet. It's so nice to have that kind of relationship. Not all siblings have that. Do you, how does she, I'll ask you now, how does she feel about this whole experience?
I just feel like I don't know what I would have done without her, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. She blocked a lot of it out. She remembers, she talks about a time when we were in Connecticut that I don't remember that time. She talks about a time that we saw something in Connecticut, and I don't remember that time at all. There's a lot of times that I forgot. I do remember she talks about us watching. There was a lot of paranormal activity, UFO sightings over. It was East Mountain. Tom Reed used to see them a lot over on East Mountain as well. We were swapping notes about that, Tom and I, because, Tom grew up in Great Barrington as well. We spent a lot of time as young kids talking about this. Both Tom and I used to spend time down in Sheffield in the 1960s, early 60s, around his restaurant where his mom was. And I remember we were talking. It's amazing because he even worked at some of the same places that I did. And then 50 some years later, we find out all this stuff. But there was a place called East Mountain that there was a lot of UFO activity. And my sister and I used to look out our bedroom window and watch UFOs. So my sister and I, we used to watch those UFOs. She didn't have any abductions happen to her, though. She just would see them.
So when you could see these UFOs, was it just the two of you, or are there other people that can go to East Mountain and see these things at random?
Well, Tom used to see them up at East Mountain also, and he was amazed when I had mentioned East Mountain. He's like, oh my God, you saw them on East Mountain as well? He was shocked when I mentioned the East Mountain sightings.
Do you think it has something to do with those who have had close encounters, and that maybe in a sense they're letting you see them? Or
I just think it's a hot spot. I think that Berkshire County is a hot spot. I know that the Cherry Street and Stockbridge is another hot spot. Cherry Hill and Stockbridge. There's several hot spots around here. Tom and I, we were talking about how General Electric is here. There's a lot of lime areas for the nuclear power plants. They were using the lime back in the 60s. There could have been a lot of government involvement. There was the Project Monarch Butterfly going on back then. We don't know exactly what happened during that time. We don't know whether there were abductions that were going on, whether it was government. We really don't know, either Tom or I, what was going on.
So you said abductions, plural. So how far back can you remember having your first experience?
I was 4 years old, but the stories that my mother tells me about weird things that I did, she was telling me a story. I was this man was interviewing me once about the strangest things that had happened to me. And I remember my mom, and this is very weird, the story that she tells me. She's telling me about a story when I was 2 years old. She sent me to my bedroom, and I was being punished at 2 up on Cottage Street. I don't know why you would punish somebody at 2 years old, but she sent me to my bedroom, and she said that I made a voodoo doll. Now, how a 2-year-old would know how to make a voodoo doll, I have no idea. She said I made it out of a clothespin, and I was taking pins and sticking pins into this clothespin, and she came in and said, "What are you doing?" And she said I told her it was her, and I was sticking pins into it. Wow. And how would a 2-year-old know how to do something like that?
Right.
Back in if I was born in 57, it would be 59. Where would I learn something like that? That's crazy stuff.
Well, 2 thoughts came to my mind was almost as if maybe you were possessed, or something fed you information or was sort of controlling you, right? Or could it be on your mother's part and having nothing to do with extraterrestrials?
I have no idea. I think about that over and over and over again, and I'm like, what? It's crazy stuff. And it's like, she said, "You were the weirdest kid. You were the weirdest kid." And I'm like, we didn't even have television. They didn't talk about that kind of stuff back then, Mom. Where's that coming from?
Yeah, I couldn't imagine a program on TV that you would be watching, right? That would teach you that.
No, it's just crazy stuff. So I have to tell you that before she came forward and told me all about the whole UFO situation and finally admitted that had happened up at Lake Mansfield, and I went through the hypnosis, I actually started doing research on King Philip's War and the little people, because the Native Americans had little people that they used, that they had in their tribes, that were the dwarfs, and they were the shaman, the shamanic healers. And the where the Congregational Church is, that's where they had the great wigwam. So I thought perhaps around the Housatonic River, maybe they were little ghosts that were coming into my house. But the more I thought about it and I did research, I realized that these were the Greys. These were not the little people. So I had to do research. I did a lot of research. And then she finally admitted to me that what had happened up at the lake.
And you have a clear recollection of that description of the prototypical gray alien?
Absolutely. That's why I knew that it wasn't the little people. We actually made a trip out to South Dakota, my husband and I, too, just to spend time and meet the Native Americans.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that there's something to be said that if one interprets an event like this in regard of little people, elves or sprites or fairy or something of that like, that maybe those myths of old were actually people anthropomorphizing the alien abduction experience, and passing those stories down, and they just became elves and they became dwarves and what have you.
These definitely were not dwarfs. These were definitely...
But could it be processed, do you think? Do you think one can have that experience, and then not knowing how to deal with it, to literally process what's happening to them, that they imagine it as something else, like sort of projecting another vision of what they saw? I like Whitley Strieber, for instance. I know he discusses seeing an owl, right? And the owl kind of stands in for the alien. Does that make sense?
They're like what do you call them? Shape. There's a word for that. Shapeshifters.
Yeah. Either shapeshifters or a manipulation of the mind, projecting onto you what they want you to see.
Right.
Or even
what happened to my sister when she said she saw a troll. Because that's what she swears. She said that, no, it was a troll. It wasn't a little gray man. It was a troll.
Right.
And she swears to this day that's what she saw was a troll.
See, yeah. So there's something going on there that is fascinating. And because we have all these stories of these encounters in ancient history, I just wonder, when you think in terms of fairy circles, where people saw lights, and the image of the mushrooms in a circle, sure, that could be our imagination, but maybe, there was some event, some encounter with beings that took place, and those stories just turned into fairies, when in fact those were extraterrestrial encounters. So for you, it was very clear. You remember clearly what they looked like, and how did they treat you?
Well, I can remember being levitated out of my room, so it didn't matter if my father put locks on the door because you're just levitated. I can remember being levitated out through the attic,
Mm-hmm.
and you can't move when this happens to you. You can only move your eyes. That's it. And I can remember being levitated down the Housatonic River. And there was a field where the Housatonic River was. And that's what was so ironic when my friend had told me about her sister, because that's the route where their house was too, right along that river.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I can remember. That's the only image that I can remember, was being taken down that river. And I can remember seeing Melvin's Pharmacy, which is no longer there. Now it's a Walgreens.
Mm-hmm.
But that's all I can remember. I get stuck at that spot, going down the river and then just seeing behind the pharmacy. And I don't remember anything after that. I can remember the attic, and I can remember the levitating, mm-hmm. and seeing the wood in the attic and all of that, but I don't remember anything else.
Was there a sensation or feeling from being levitated?
it's like just the floating and not being able to move. And I can remember coming back in and just being horrified, being really frightened, and trying to tell my parents, and then just them not just being punished afterwards.
Right.
And I always had stomach pains. Always had stomach pains afterwards. My father was always bringing me to the doctors. Always.
So the stomach pains were not something that were common unless you had one of these experiences?
But it happened all the time. It always happened to me. He was always taking me to there was a doctor that was up in Housatonic. I remember that doctor had a clock, a grandfather clock. My father was always taking me up there.
So, when you were looking at these beings, what was that exchange like?
It was a gray being, and it would come into my room. And my sister was usually sleeping, except for that one time that she saw it. And it would look at you and tell you. It would communicate with you through mental telepathy. But you could understand what it was trying to tell you. And basically, it was telling you to be quiet, to not wake anybody up. And
was it
that
soothing?
it was time to go, that you were going to go, and you're so scared that you can't move. And so you can't do anything. You have no control of yourself. They have complete control of you.
So there was nothing soothing about it at all? Did you feel? No. Okay.
No, it's not something that's fun, because there have been times where my husband has asked me, Henry has asked me, why don't you call them? Why don't you ask them to come down? I would really love this experience. And I'm like, no, you wouldn't like this experience. It's not something that you would enjoy. I still sleep sitting up. I sleep with 3 pillows sitting up. And my dogs, I have 3 dogs. One of them is too old to come upstairs now, but I have 3 dogs around my bed. I used to have 3 of them around my bed. Now the old one can't make it upstairs anymore, but I have 2. I have a German Shepherd and a Tree Walker Coonhound that sleep. One sleeps on my bed and the other one, a German Shepherd, right beside my bed. It was really frightening.
And that was it? The only communication was to stay quiet?
Right. To be very quiet.
Did you get any sense of what their motive was?
I think that they were experimenting on me. That's what I think. And like I said, I feel like Tom Reed, was it, we don't know if it was alien life, or was it the government, or was it both? Were they involved together? We don't know. We really don't know what was going on back then.
Now, physically, were you okay? Did you come away, out of harm's way physically?
I still have weird things that happen to me. I set off alarms. I just a couple weeks ago, was it last week? I think it was just last week. When was the full moon? Was the full moon last week or the week before?
I think it was the week before.
Week before. Yeah. I was down at the Big Y parking lot. It was a horrible week for me because my energy gets all off whack. I walked into my car, the car next to me. I set off the alarm. And everybody was looking at me, and I said, I didn't touch it. And then it just went off. I got in my car. I was on the phone. It went off again, the alarm. And then somebody must have went and got the guy, and the guy was like looking at me. And I said, I didn't touch it. And then I got up during the night, and the light wasn't even turned on in my bathroom. And the light kept going on and off, on and off, on and off. And then my husband woke up in the morning and he goes, oh my God, what is wrong with you? And I said, my energy is really off. He goes, yeah, check all the lights. And the light downstairs in the office was going on and off too. And I filmed it because I sent it to Al Cooley, who I did a radio show with, because I was telling you earlier that he interviewed me and I wiped out all of his tapes. The couple days before that, when he was interviewing me, he said he'd never had that happen to him before. He had to re-interview me because I ruined all of his equipment.
Now, when I was younger, I had a friend, for some reason, whenever we were together, things like that would happen. Street lamps would just,
Same
randomly
with
go
me.
out. Yeah. Or there would be this weird exchange of like electricity and energy. And I'm not saying that this is for me, because I don't believe anything like this happened to me, but I do hear often those who have not just UFO encounters, but paranormal experiences, especially repetitive experiences, have this effect on electronics often. There's an interference, things get a little weird, glitchy. And I wonder, do you think that there's a connection there?
Absolutely. I can't not walk into a store. When I walk into a store, it's not all the time. You can feel it when your energy's high, you know it. I will walk into a store and the alarm will go off and I'll say, here, check my bag. I'm not hiding anything. Now, when I walk into a store, people will know and they'll say, oh, she just sets alarms off if it's a local store that they know me.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I'll have to stand back if I'm at a supermarket because I'll shut the conveyor, the belt down.
Oh,
I have to stand
yeah.
back. I've been struck by lightning 3 times. One time I blew everything in the house. The microwave, the television sets. Fortunately, we have homeowners insurance. Pardon? The computers all got ruined. I can't go in my husband's office because he's afraid he'll lose everything on his business.
What about
I'm not allowed in there. Oh, in the airport, forget going through customs at the airport. It takes me forever. They have to go through my bags because I set off the alarm at the airport and I have nothing to hide. You can check me. I have nothing to hide. I can't get through there.
Well, some science suggests that we can affect reality, and then at the smallest level, waves of energy at the subatomic level, at the quantum level, can be affected by our intention. And intention doesn't necessarily have to be something that you want to happen or don't want to happen. It could just be your state of mind. You're thinking about something, your mood. And I wonder have you noticed any particular moods maybe that you were in when this happened, or is it just, at any time?
I think when I'm really stressed, it happens more so. If I'm high energy or stressed, I can definitely feel when it's coming on. Like I'll say to Henry, my husband, this is going to happen. One time we were in Mexico walking. I was with my mom and dad, and we were walking down this pathway where there were these lights on the ground. I said to my mother, see those lights? They're going to go off. They're all going to pop. She said, you're nuts. You are really crazy. You just don't change. I said, watch. And all 5 of them popped. She said, you're just the weirdest person I've ever known. But they did. All of them popped.
It was so funny. I was thinking about this recently. This idea, like I'll refer to myself, or a lot of people in the community will refer to themselves as, weird and proud of it, or have a little bit of crazy in them and proud of it. But then when someone else says it to you, it really depends on how they say it. Did that make you feel bad, or did you just kind of feel like, oh, that's quirky me?
No, I don't think it's not something I'm proud of. It's actually very expensive. It gets expensive. You have to pay for these things.
True.
Are you kidding me?
Very true. Yeah.
No, I have to replace all of this. If we didn't have homeowners here, and it gets expensive because your insurance goes up.
Right. And there certainly is no insurance for extraterrestrial encounters.
No.
But maybe one day we'll get to the place where society at large does accept that these are real experiences for people. Do you see a future where you can, walk down the street and talk to any person, any scientist or government official, and be comfortable and know that they wouldn't judge you and know that they're open to accepting your story? Or is that some place, way far down the line?
I don't talk about it. I really don't. I just started talking about it. I live in the middle of the woods, 6 acres of land with my dogs. I have 3 dogs, 2 cats, and 18 chickens. That's it. And I have my grandchildren come and visit me. I'm a painter. I live a very quiet life in the Berkshires. I have my friends come and visit me, and that's it. I'm not somebody that's out there. I'm not writing a book. I'm not making money off of this. It's Tom Reed and we correspond with one another. This is not a money-making thing for me. I'm not out there selling anything. This isn't something I talk about usually. Right.
Yeah. And I think that's fantastic that you are opening up about it. And again, like Tom, you do seem to be measured in how you share your story. Is there any aspect of the story that you didn't share on Unsolved Mysteries that we haven't talked about tonight?
Well, Unsolved Mysteries knew all of this. I had shared all of this with them. There was a lot that was cut out. I think they did a good job, a really wonderful job, but they cut a lot out. They cut a lot of Tom Reed's out as well. A lot of his documents were cut out. A lot of Kevin Titus's was cut out also, the judges. There was a lot of important information that was cut out of Netflix.
Right, and we do expect Judge Kevin Titus to be calling around 9:15 tonight, so he can talk a little bit about his work on the park and his officiating it into legal history, as it were. So I look forward to that when we come back on the other side of the break. And Melanie, I do want to know. Where are you, spiritually? Are you a religious person? And what do you make of the paranormal and ufological community now that you have opened up and you're exchanging with all of these, types of people that are, the part of my tribe, as it were. So this is Alan B. Smith for Paranormal Now on KGRA Radio. We have so much more to cover with Melanie. It's been a really great conversation. Thank you, Melanie, for joining us tonight. I'll see you on the other side. And everyone, again, thank you for tuning in every week. If you want to follow me on Twitter at paranormal_now and on Facebook, Paranormal Now Radio. See you on the flip side.
Mainstream media's most wanted. KGRAradio.com.
Not try to capture how I feel and tell you the whole truth, but there's too much to be said, so I just leave you small clues. But now I'm bearing my soul and the soul of soul. Tell me nice things. Tell me nice things. Tell me nice things.
Welcome back, everyone, to Paranormal Now. This is Alan B. Smith, your grateful host. Taking us out of the break was Septembrio. If you want to find out more about their awesome music, go to septembrio.com, and you can also find them on iTunes or wherever you download your music. All right, so in about 30 minutes, we're going to open up the Paranormal Radio app phone lines. That number is 855-472-5483 or 85-KGRA Live. Wait for your cue to call in. Bill Skywatcher will bring you on air, and you can ask your questions away. So I look forward to hearing what you have to ask. And if you do have an experience of your own, I'd like to hear about that. It seems to me that there are a lot of people out there that just haven't shared publicly their experiences. And this is the right community to do that. And, if you want to call in anonymously and share that, please feel free to do that. And it's a way of being with the community without anyone knowing your identity. And I think it's kind of a safe place where you can do that. So, Melanie, were you a religious person? Were you raised religious at all?
I was raised Irish Catholic, but I did not believe in that religion because my sister and I, we were supposed to go to church, but our parents didn't go to church. So we always ended up we'd go in and we'd get the bulletin, and then we'd go to the pharmacy instead and have hot cocoa. And then we'd give them the bulletin, we'd research the bulletin.
Mm-hmm.
So we knew what was going on in the parish. I believe in a creator. I believe like the First Nations people believe. But my beliefs are that there is a creator. I also believe that there are prophets. I believe that Christ was a prophet, but I also believe that Martin Luther King and Bob Marley are prophets. I believe that we're all children of God. That's my belief. So, yes, I'm very spiritual.
So you can basically marry, all these different spiritual beliefs together, right?
That's right.
That's sort of what I do. I was raised Catholic as well, and there's so many beautiful aspects to that religion, but I take parts of it with me and leave some of it behind.
Yes.
And integrate different aspects. Yeah. Of all those things, do you have any rituals? Do you meditate, or do you just sort of live in a everyday space of recognition of something bigger?
Well, I burn my incense every day and pray. That's the first thing I do when I wake up in the morning, as I light my incense and I pray, and I never blow them out. I always wave them out, because you're not supposed to blow your incense out. So that I do first thing in the morning, and I pray. And I always have to hike in the woods every day to be in nature. I don't feel right if I'm not hiking in the woods. I just don't feel good about not being in the woods. And I have to listen to music every day. I love to listen to Bob Marley. He always has a good message to say.
Right. Yeah, it's funny. I was just talking to Mark D'Antonio and from KGRA Radio, and he and I were talking about this idea of people experiencing one love, a sense of one love, in all these different, whether it is a spiritual rapture that one interprets as or believes to be a direct contact with God, or some other sort of mystical transcendence, whether it's through meditation or use of psychedelic drugs or what have you. So many people come back from these experiences and they think in terms of one love, that there's this connection. And Bob Marley, he really hit the nail on the head, and the message of love throughout all his songs, even pieces that are angry, it's effervescent. It's always there. Do you think that there's something to that? Do you think that love is somehow part of the matrix of what this universe is made of?
Well, I'd like to think that. Even his children are such peaceful kids too. They're really good kids, and his grandchildren. So I'd like to think that. I've spent a lot of time down there too, down in Jamaica, and I like the people down in Jamaica. So yeah, I just really enjoy his messages. It makes me feel better when I listen to him.
Have your experiences shaped your spirituality at all?
have my experiences shaped?
Your close encounter experiences. Yeah.
Wait, can you say that again? I'm sorry.
Sure. Have your close encounter abduction experiences shaped your spirituality? Has it hurt, affected it, changed the trajectory in any way?
I would have to say that it's made me be someone that is, I'm not judgmental towards other people. I think I'm more open-minded than others are, possibly. I keep to myself a lot more than other people do. I'm not out there. I'm more withdrawn.
Uh-huh. And
I would
you
have
think
to say
that could be maybe a side effect, or do you remember yourself always being that way?
I've always been, I don't know if I want to call it shy, but it's like, I don't know how to say, I guess I'm weird. I guess that would be
Well,
thing.
you like time to yourself, right?
I like painting. I like
Mhm.
being in the woods, but at the same time, I like being with other cultures too. When I travel, like
Mhm.
when my husband and I travel, we like being in third world countries instead of being in places where there's wealthy people. We'd much rather be in a third world country on in a dirt floor with a cabin, eating food out of a gourd,
Yeah.
with people, eating the food with the people. We like being with the people.
Mhm.
That's how we would rather travel instead of being in a fancy hotel with marble floors, whereas other people would rather do something like that. Does
Oh,
that make sense to you?
and absolutely makes sense to me.
Because
Some of
that's how
our
you learn. That's learning about other cultures.
Well, that's the difference. Well, I'm not sure. That's the difference, I think, between a vacation and a travel. And when you travel, whether it's a setting like that or you're going to a city in Europe, if you're going to experience the culture, that to me is re-energizing, invigorating. It does recharge you, I think, better than if you just take off to the beach. This is just me speaking, but then if you just take off the beach and lie on the beach for 7 days, and I guess that's kind of what you're saying, right? That it's this deeper experience with the culture or with people that is more grounded. Is that the word?
Absolutely. It's better to be with the people it's better to be with the people in the country than to just be in it with a tour guide, to be in a tour
Mm-hmm.
when you travel.
So you're not joining Disney Cruise anytime soon?
No, I don't do cruises.
Yeah. Especially now. Definitely don't want to do cruises.
No.
So I guess, okay. So it sounds to me like you've psychologically, however you did it, you've managed to get through this trauma, and you sound like a positive person. So do you have a positive outlook on these abductions, if you will? Do you see them differently now, or do you think that it was still a wrong thing what they did to you?
I had to become a survivor. I had to. The last incident that took place was in the 90s, and I don't even know exactly what happened to me because I had an exchange student that was staying here. All I can remember was a bright light around my house, and I could not wake anyone up. I couldn't wake Henry up. I couldn't wake the animals up. I couldn't wake my son up or my exchange student up. I couldn't wake anyone up to show them, but everything was lit up. And I just looked outside and I couldn't see where the light was coming from. It was just everything was brilliantly lit up. I just crawled back under my covers and I don't know what happened after that. And that was the last time that it happened. I don't know what happened after that, but I told my husband the next morning I couldn't wake anyone up. That was the very last time that it happened to me. But I don't have, I've had nightmares. I've been woken up since then. My husband has woken me up screaming. He said to me, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" But it's so realistic, like they're standing over me again. So I still have nightmares about it.
Well, so that's interesting. So you're able to distinguish, right? And say, this is a nightmare. I remember it as such, and it's different than what you experienced when you were younger.
Well, it seems like it's real. I mean, it's real enough that I'm screaming enough to wake him up. It's frightening, and it takes me a while to. It's very difficult. I'm an insomniac, so when I finally do fall asleep, though, and I have a nightmare like that, it's pretty hard to wake him up, to believe me. So I'm really screaming to wake him up, and I wake the dogs up and they start barking. I mean, I have a gate at the bottom of my driveway even. That's how spooked out I get.
Well, okay. So when you were younger, did any of those encounters, startle you in the night, or
I wouldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep. I would be afraid to fall asleep. Why do you think I sleep sitting up still?
yeah.
It's very difficult for me to sleep.
So the initial contact must have been shocking.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's their end game? Do you have any idea through your encounters if they are doing something? Because
Well, let me tell you this. I just had tear duct surgery done on my eyes, and the doctor said to me, "I don't understand it. Have you ever had tear duct surgery done before?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, you've got so much scar tissue in your tear ducts." And then I had sinus surgery done. I was out of it because I had anesthesia. And my husband said that the doctor said to him, "I've never seen such scar tissue in someone's nasals before, like your wife had." What was her mother, an alien? And I was out of it, so I didn't hear it, but my husband Henry heard it.
was that supposed to be a joke when he said that?
I have no idea. But he said that my left sinus was completely shut, completely closed up with scar tissue.
Okay, so something happened to you, and you had no prior operations. Is that correct?
No, I had never had any surgery. He had asked Henry if I'd ever had any other surgeries before.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So what does one do? I mean, is there they're just scar tissues and it's left there? There's nothing to be done about it?
Apparently.
Okay.
Well, they had to open it up. He had to reopen it up, and it was like a 5-day recovery thing afterwards, because I couldn't breathe.
Yeah. So there might have been some physical experiments done to you.
That's what I think.
Yeah, but you don't remember exactly anything in particular, right?
No.
Yeah. Now, some of the other experiencers during this 1969 event, specifically at the September 1st, and I know it was another sighting, series of sightings, I think about a week afterwards, right? That September 1st event, did I've heard some of those people have a shared experience. Did you have that as well?
That night my sister and I, we did not want to go that night with my parents. Janie and I wanted to go out and smoke cigarettes after we were working. We started working. I was 12 years old, cleaning the Mahawi Theater, and Janie was 14. And back then, we were wild little girls. We wanted to go to Penny Rock and smoke cigarettes. And my parents made us get in the car and go out for ice cream. So we went up to Lake Mansfield, and all of a sudden, this humongous craft came over the lake. It was giant. And my dad looked up and he was like, "Holy shit," excuse my language. And he was it was there, and I knew that it was coming for me again. And finally, he sees it. He sees it. And he's like, I got to follow this thing. And my mother's like, no, Joey, no. And Janie and we were screaming. And we're like, no, no. And I just remember lying down putting my head down, and he had an army blanket. So I can remember smelling this gray wool army blanket, and we were crying hysterically. And then all I can remember is once again being levitated over it was like at Berkshire Heights. And once again, you can't move. It was just my eyes that I could move. And after that, I just remember being in a room it was like metallic. It was all metallic, almost like glass. And then there was like a red glow through it. I don't know what they did to me there. I don't remember seeing anyone in there. But then I remember being in a room after that where there were other kids. There were children, but I didn't know anyone. There have been newspaper reports saying that they were classmates of mine. That's not true. I didn't know anyone in there.
Okay.
And I was not 14. I was 12. My sister was 14, but my sister was not there with me.
You know, when speaking with Tom, he does speak in terms of this this place that he was in. He said it could have possibly been like an underground bunker, not necessarily a UFO. And
I agree with him, because we don't know where we were. We don't know who took us, what took us. We have no idea what went on. There was a lot of things going on back in the 1960s with the government.
Right. And they seem to, and I guess it came out of World War II, this intense trust and appreciation, well-founded, of the military and the what became the CIA, right? And the espionage, because it was to protect our country. We trusted the work that they did. And I think that they abused that trust. And they got away with a lot, which we know about today. So sometimes when I hear some of these stories, it does make me wonder, were these, government events that these were, or maybe a special access program run amok and experimenting on you or on people, because they've done that before.
Well, I did a lot of research at one point wondering about this, like I said, on the little people. And then I came across, at one point, there was a project that the CIA did called Project Monarch Butterfly, where they were taking children. But now if you try to look it up, you can no longer find Project Monarch Butterfly through the CIA. They've taken it all off of the internet. I think I still have those files, though. I think I kept them. I printed them all out, and I think I have boxes of files of them.
All right. Well, it looks like we have Judge Kevin Titus, who's just called in, so I'm going to bring him on the air. Kevin, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, how are you?
Hello. I'm good. How are you? Is this Alan?
This is, and Melanie's with
Kevin.
us.
Hi, Melanie.
How are you, Kevin? Thank you for joining us.
Sure, no problem.
So, Kevin, can you tell us a little bit about the park itself and what you did? Melanie and I touched on this a little bit, but it'd be nice to get a refresher course.
Okay. Well, good night. Good evening, everybody. What I did, if you mean for the park at first, or are you talking about quite recently? I guess you're talking about in the past how we put it together? Correct.
Yes.
Okay. I just want to get in the right line with you. Okay. As I said, to make the park a reality, it all started around 2015, where Tom Reed and I knew the family very well. I had just come back from my military tour and came back to my home, and I was doing some research in the historical areas about things in the area that I was familiar with. and I came to the Sheffield Bridge over in Sheffield, Massachusetts, and I looked over, and there was this, how can I say it, a monument on the left. And on the left, there was a story about a UFO and story in historical September 1st, 1969 with Tom Reed. When I saw the name Tom Reed, I immediately knew that Tom Reed I were childhood friends with a bunch of us from the same area back in that time of 69. Mm-hmm. So what had happened after that time, I got a hold of Tom Reed. We got together and started trying to get the story straight in American history, and then try to make the site of the incident event a park or historical park. And I, at that point, was going to research it thoroughly, such as government records, Tom Reed records, incident records, WSBS stories on what had happened that day. And I found a lot of documents pertain to that in what we call the Freedom of Information Act in Washington. And so being a historian that I am, I researched it very thoroughly. And at that time, Tom and I came to the consideration that we need to protect this site and Tom Reed's family story. So at that time, we started fixing the park, putting benches there and special lights out there, solar lights, fixing the monument up. I mean, the area looks exactly as it did on September 5th, 1969, 51 years ago, half a century. And when you go down there, there's so much to see and to feel. So we kind of decided that to make it historically true, we decided that there were things that had to be done, such as the Massachusetts Governor, Baker, the Great Barrington Historical Society, and some other people and other documents that needed to be sealed and certified to confirm that this story is historically significant and true. Now, there is no debate that something happened that day, because over 250 people saw it. And I, as an 11-year-old, was with my family, and many people in where I lived in the Canaan, Connecticut area saw it too. And what was so strange about this whole thing is that nobody wanted to remember it. I sure as heck didn't want to at 11, 12 years old. Most kids, you kind of want to forget something like that. But because people would not believe you. Well, my policy and theory on things that you can't always explain things that you don't understand. It didn't mean it didn't happen. So nonetheless, we got the park. We got the park all well done. In fact, I think there's a new marker that has been put up there, or is going to be put there, that mentions every single person that has contributed to make this a historical site. It is a tourist attraction. People come from all over the world to see it. And the monument definitely has my name on it. I am officially noted as not only the historian for the park, but I'm also the first person in history to ever sign and seal an event such as this to make it historically true. And when somebody, a public office, puts their name to something, you research it thoroughly. You just don't put your name on seal on anything. Because if you did that, and you committed, a fraudulent or didn't tell the truth, you're going to look like a real idiot. So I know for a fact that what we accomplished here, we are trying to save this for historical significance. I tend to call it, I think Melanie might have heard or told you, that I tend to call it the Gettysburg of UFO history. And this, how the Gettysburg battlefield has monuments to everything and everywhere. Well, we're going to have a kiosk over there with a map or something looking up in the area where this craft was seen and tell the story by the cornfield. And it's very accurate. It's very historical. And then we're going to give out I know you go to some parks and they leave little leaflets, little pamphlets that you can take. Please take one or two. And it tells you the history of the site. It'll show you where everything is, where the road is, where Tom Reed's family's car stopped, where the craft was seen, explains about the corn over there that's very strange. We're trying to save it for future generations for historical significance. So I decided to legally get involved and put a stop to what I could with the Sheffield philandering, playing around with this issue and trying to discredit Tom Reed and many, many, many others.
Well, I think when you come from a dishonest place, you're setting yourself up to fail, and that's what some of these people in Sheffield did. And I think that you all handled it very well, especially on the PR front. And I'm glad things are getting back together. Do you know when the actual that the stone monument will that be returned anytime soon?
Okay, I'll give you some updates on that. Number one, we know that it was removed illegally from the site, and actually, to make a long story short, the monument actually was placed by the city, and they put it there and said that's where they wanted it, and that's what they did. We didn't do it, and they left it there. And well, what had happened was later on, I won't mention some names. Tom Reed or Melanie might have told you some of the people from Sheffield Power. They decided to remove it in the middle of the night after we had posted. And get this, we own that land. Tom Reed, it's called UFO Park Monument Incorporated, LLC. Everybody's involved in it. It's private property. And they came over and we posted "Do not trespass" all over the our property. And do you know something? The next morning, they had torn down our signs, which they knew was illegal. They also then removed with a tractor and took the monument away. They never did tell us where it is, but I did find out, and this I will tell you, that I had heard that Tom Warner, who a lot of us do not have any respect for, decided that he'd get with some Canaan Falls Village, Connecticut people to try to hide it in a storage unit over in Canaan. When I found out of it as a judge, I already went down there and told them they are to remove that and bring it. If it's over here, bring it back to Massachusetts, or I'm going to be charging everybody with felonies, including Tom Warner. And Tom Warner they actually have a kind of an outstanding warrant looking for him, which he come back in Connecticut for something.
Really?
But let's forget that part. The main part is is the monument. We believe it was destroyed when they were putting it in storage. They destroyed this 5,000-pound monument, whether it was intentional or not. But by them moving it the way they did it with a fork, lift like a loader, they probably destroyed it. They wanted us to sign documents saying that we accept it as it is. That tells you right there that they damaged it severely, or it's so badly damaged we couldn't fix it. They never gave it to us. So we went ahead and had another plaque put out, which is out there. And there is a change of power in Sheffield, Massachusetts right now that I think is becoming more acceptable. I think they know because all the movies and TV shows and articles and radio and everything that's been talked about, it's bringing tourism from all over the world. I think that little town knows, you know what? These dollars are good for our community. We need to, give it a hug, bring it to whole arms in here. But you see, The problem was all that could have been avoided years ago.
Yes, it's a shame. But I can understand their fear, right, of being overrun by crazy festivals or people coming and camping in the middle of the night and, the more fringe people in the UFO community. That's a legitimate concern, isn't it?
Sure. And we also had that under control, too. You see, we were hoping that they would get the police involved. We were planning to put cameras throughout the park that would notify the police, like, a burglar alarm. If somebody was out there touching something that they shouldn't be touching, a sensor alarm, if you will. We had deer cameras that we were going to put out that you can't even see them, but boy, they can see you. And we were going to work with the police and ask them if they wouldn't mind to monitor this thing. And hopefully, this is something I'm working on. I'm trying to get the National Park Service to accept this as a National Historical Gem. Now, if the National Park gets control of it, it's going to get protection.
That would be fantastic. Kevin, thank you so much. And Kevin and Melanie, have you met on more than one occasion and had talked about this event together?
I haven't met with Kevin yet. I look forward to it, though.
All right. Now there's
I've heard a lot about her. Tom has told me a lot about her, and we did talk on the phone earlier this evening before she came on your show, and I called. Yes, I'm looking forward to getting to talk to her because there's a lot of us that have a very passionate drive, if you will, to protect this site, but not only protect the site, but I want to protect Tom Reed's family story, because I know his mother and family very well. His mother did not even want to get involved in unsolved mysteries because she knew what they were going to do. I was very leery of it too. I was guaranteed that my part was very essential in the show, and they did not show it. I think, Melanie, did you mention that, Melanie, about the scenes that they just completely took out from the story?
I did mention it. I did say that you were not in the film and you were supposed to be.
Right. And now, I guess from a filmmaker's perspective, right, they're trying to tell this because there was many people with many different experiences that night and sightings. So do you think that they were just trying to not, make it too much about the park itself and just keep it more broad about the human experiences that many people have had?
No, I honestly, if you want me to try to answer that, Melanie, or would you like to?
You can answer that.
Okay. Out of respect to her. I believe firmly it was about somebody else who we are pretty shocked at. And basically, we're not happy with this gentleman. I will just tell you that during the filming, this gentleman, if you saw the Unsolved Mystery Story, where they could have put in my scenes, which were very important, it wasn't about a personal reason to show me. It was because it's part of the story. This is very important about what I did, and it should be told. And everybody now is calling the station. I mean, the people and telling Netflix, hey, you need to put that guy back in. You didn't tell the true story. But here's how I look at it. Tom Reed will agree with me. I'm sure when you talk to him, he will. And I believe Melanie will too. But there's a scene in there, wasted, 6-7 minutes of this man lying on the ground, looking up at the stars with his wacky weed look and lying there like saying stupid things that had absolutely no credibility, had absolutely nothing to do except for self-vanity. It was all about me.
Melanie, do you feel comfortable?
Mine is yours, and what's yours is yours. That's what it was. And he has discredited so many people, and I believe that even Melanie is not very happy with this gentleman. And I'm not speaking for anybody other than myself. And Tom, he said too, it is a tragedy what this person has done, and I don't know why he would do this after everything that we tried to get him involved. Now, thinking about his part in the story, I'm very, how can I say it, skeptical. Maybe it's because I'm a judge, but it's also because when you talk to somebody, you sometimes can look through them and say, that doesn't exactly sound plausible. It doesn't sound like you're really telling the truth. Honestly, it's about this man's vanity about himself. He's trying to take the story away from who it really happened to and the people that suffered from it, people who experienced it, people that lived it, people who didn't want to talk about it for 51 years because they'll be labeled a mental case or whatever. And I don't think that's true. I believe when you have 250 people, Alan, that see something, and a lot of these people do not know each other, and it's a 12-mile radius. Do you honestly think that they're all out of it? I don't. I think
no, I certainly don't.
There's evidence of that. Did anybody tell you, Alan, about what evidence there is there at the park that you may or may not know about.
Evidence currently there at the park?
Yes, and every year it occurs.
I don't recall, and we've talked about this so many times on the show. Melanie, are you familiar with this?
The evidence, the corn with the crop circles? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes. So on the one side of the field, the corn grows higher. Is that it?
18 feet stalks, 3 foot corn
Right.
pods bigger than your arm. And
Right.
I took pictures and posted it. And I had some scientists back in 2015. We went out there and did some magnetic readings. There's a lot of radiation in that area that you don't get on the other side. Not only that, but there's places in the field, and I will quote this, that nothing grows there. It can't.
Kevin, you said you had pictures of the corn.
Oh, yes.
Can you email that to us?
Sure, I could try to get them. I got to look for them in my archives, but I do have
that would be great. Yeah, I'd love to show that on the program again, or even before the end of the night if possible. So you can email me at Alan, ALAN, at paranormalnow.com, and I can message you separately to remind you as well. But that would be fantastic. Because evidence matters. It really does.
There's definitely evidence. In fact, Tom has those pictures too.
There's some crop circles too.
And Melanie said there's some crop circles as well. Do you have those images?
Yeah. You want to know something else? This may sound real science fiction-y, but I had my sister-in-law and my wife went down there a few years ago in July or August, and the corn stalks were huge. And my sister-in-law is very skeptical, but she's a wonderful person. If she feels something unnatural, there's something. She's a policeman, and she went down there and she was terrified to go down to the corn stalks because as we walked in, not only were they tall and the corn cobs were huge, but when you get down about halfway into the rows of corn, there are the biggest spiders I've ever seen in my eyes. They are so big. They are yellow, black, and they're huge. I'm not kidding you. They're you put your two hands together, and that's how big and wide they are. Would you want to walk through there? No.
Is it the north or the south side, Kevin?
What's that?
Is it the north or the south side of the road?
The northwest side.
Northwest side, okay.
Is that Henry in the background?
Across from the monument where it was.
Hold on. Okay, yes.
So Leon,
I want to go there and look again.
So, Melanie,
the crop circles.
Melanie, you and Henry, have you seen this?
No, that's why I want to go back down there and look. You can feel the energy, though, for sure. I could feel it.
Oh, it's very negative over there. It's now Tom probably will tell you, Alan and Melanie, when he goes down that street and gets to the original telephone pole that's still there, where his car and his family stopped. When he hits that part, Tom's not an actor. He's terrible at it. He's a great guy, and he's honest. It's because he starts getting very anxiety-minded. He starts getting really stressed out when you get to that spot. It bothers him really, really bad. And he has to walk away, especially when he's giving people a tour when he's in the area. I've had the same experience, not feeling unhappy, but I felt a kind of energy, like Melanie said. It's an area, there's something about it. It's just very uncomfortable. And it's not because you're imagining a boogeyman or a Martian or a monster. It's something real, an energy. And the scientists that I've had there stated that there is a form of radioactivity, and the magneticness is so uncredible over there. But you can go across the other cornfields, the other side, and they're perfectly normal over there. Now you tell me what you think, Alan.
Well, I think certainly something affected the environment, not naturally. Because if you go outside of that area, even greater, this area is an anomaly. The behavior, it's not like, I don't know, like an electromagnetic field line or something, maybe wires that could be causing something. This is a singular spot and area. So there is something odd there. It's not unlike It's not unlike a crop circle, right? I mean, you go in and you can read the grass that is bent, and it comes up with higher radiation.
Circles are.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing will grow there. Nothing. But right next to the next aisle, you have hundreds of these 18-foot stalks. I've never seen stalks that big in my entire. Every year, they're huge. You go across the street, they're the normal 9-8 foot.
Mm-hmm.
How can that happen? What's causing that?
Well, have you? Well, could radiation cause that at all?
Where does radiation come from?
That's the question, right?
That is the question. Sun radiation? No. Over there in the middle of the night, if you got the guts to go there, it's very creepy at night. When you go over there, if you were to go over there, you could see, and I'm not kidding, and I'm not talking about the solar lights. When you go into those fields, there are nights when there's something very illuminating. We're not talking about lightning bugs. It's something in the ground. It's very, very weird. People go down there and they can't believe it. They go out there and they say, what happened here? That's why, because of its historical significance, it is the first UFO incident that has ever been inducted into U.S. history. There are other incidents, but this is the first one where a historical park, and it's still the same as it was a half a century ago.
Right. Hey, Kevin, is there an event coming up in the next couple of weeks, or this month, I think, or October?
I think so. I think there's October 3rd or 4th. I think, don't quote me, ask Tom, but I think we're going to be having something going on because it's after the ceremony was last year. We didn't have it. But,
right.
Yeah, there's something going on over there. I think October the 3rd or 4th. I forget what it's about. I've got to get with Tom to find out. But it does have to do with, I think it's called UFO Day or something. I don't quote me on that, but I believe it's something like that. And Tom's going to be there. A lot of the people are going to be there involved in it. I'm probably going to be there. It's a big thing. It's for everybody to get real tours, to show people what it's like. I mean, it's an incredible journey. You should come out and see that.
Oh, we absolutely would love to. Yeah. And, in October it's a beautiful time of the year. I don't know if we'll make it that date, but we'll certainly make it on another for sure. Kevin, so if I can just boil down all of the legality of the historical aspect of this to layman's term, basically this event was a legit event.
This is absolutely a legit event. The only thing I want to quote, and I want this to go on the record because it's happened too many times. Melanie, I don't know if she agrees with this, but that's up to Melanie. You tell me, Melanie, but I think Tom will tell you very frankly, quite frankly, this is not an abduction, okay? He was not abducted by aliens. Okay?
We've already said that. We talked about this earlier, Alan and I did. I said, we don't know what happened, Tom and I. We have no idea what happened. We've never, we don't know whether it was the government that was involved. We have no idea what happened to us. We can't figure it out. Tom and I talk about this all the time, Tom Reed and I.
Yeah, and I think that people need to be careful with that term. If you say abduction, that could be anything. It has nothing to do with extraterrestrials. Right. So I think the caveat there is when you're to preface it with extraterrestrial abduction or a suspected human abduction, right?
Right, and this is not what this is, and I want to make sure you understand that, everybody. What now, if you ask me, the other gentleman, to him, that's what he calls it. So I think Melanie knows what I'm talking about.
Absolutely. We know something happened to us. We just don't know what it was that happened to us.
Correct.
We both experienced something, but we don't know what it was that we experienced. We experienced the same thing. We've swapped notes, and it was the same thing.
Correct, and Melanie's correct that. But what I'd like to add is there was other things that happened around here that puts government suspicion, if you will. I've written a history about this. Did you know this area, especially in the Cannon Falls Village, Connecticut area, was known in World War II as a top secret atomic bomb location? And do you know what they did here? They took lime. The lime.
Yeah, I said that. I was telling Alan that.
Yes,
hey, Kevin.
Right near the big giant holes in the ground where this took place. And for years, the government still doesn't want people going in there. They have signs saying, "Do not trespass U.S. government property." Now, what's going on there, or what did go on there? Well, I researched it, and the atomic bombs, the magnesium used in it, were made there. They also tested unusual military aircraft for a while, up to about 1972, up at Great Barrington Airport at the time. That used to be like a military air base, reserve base, and they tested weird airplanes. So, like Melanie said, Tom, everybody doesn't know what it was, but they do know that something happened. There's no doubt in my mind. The facts are the facts. I've researched it. I even found a government report that said on that very day that the Armed Guard, the Air Guard, had said that they had no helicopters, they had no airplanes up there, but their radar tech that was on that evening for the weekend, he saw something very suspicious in the air. Now you tell me what that means. They don't know.
So, Kevin, I'm going to ask you a question. I just received a message, and so the anonymous person you were speaking of earlier, and you mentioned there being a warrant. Now, was that for Sheffield, that area?
It's if he ever tries to do something in the state of Connecticut, because
in the state of Connecticut. Is that
I didn't names,
right?
And
just legally, just want to be careful about saying something like that, just in case. So this is
if he were to commit what we say he was suspected of maybe doing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's why I don't want to get into that much more, because it's something that luckily it didn't happen here.
Okay. All right, so we'll leave that at that.
So, that kind of thing. You know what I would, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, look, everyone, we only have a few minutes left. So if you do want to call in and ask a question, the phone line is 855-472-5483 or 85-KGRA live. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We always appreciate your input.
Okay, well, thank you for having me. I hope you got some good information. Thank you very much. Good night, Melanie.
Thank you, Kevin.
Okay, good night, Kevin. Thank you. So, Melanie, I actually have a picture of the bench, and there's two gentlemen carrying the bench. Would you mind if I share that picture, or was that something that's private?
No, not at all. Please do.
All right. So this is a bench in the UFO Monument Park. I just thought this was so nice. This is what Henry was working on, right?
And that's Ryan, who's the caretaker. He takes care of it.
Okay.
Really nice guy. He does a lot of work down there. Okay,
perfect. So when you're talking to other people in this community, in the ufological community, do you think that people want to believe that this was an extraterrestrial event, and why would they?
I don't really talk to people about it. I would say Henry talks to people about it more than I do.
Mm-hmm.
I really am. I stay home. The only one that I ever really talk to about it is Tom Reed, to be honest with you, or Henry. I don't talk to other people about it. I don't go anywhere. I stay home. I paint. I'm with my animals. That's it. Unless I'm talking to, if Tom invites me to do a radio show, that's it. I go to the supermarket. I go to Guido's market, the co-op. That's it. I lead a very private life.
That's wonderful. And it sounds like a reflective life as well.
I would say so. I like to paint. I like to garden. I do a lot of gardening.
Now, Is there a reason? Do you think that you have such interest in nature? Was that something you were raised, or?
No, I was not raised like that. I was a town girl. I grew up in town, in the town of Great Barrington. I just like being in nature.
All right. Well, I have a question for you from Anonymous, and it is, how is your health now? Do you feel healthier than the average person your age?
No, well, actually, people say that I look young for my age, but I had battled for years and years. I was one of the first people that had chronic Lyme disease. Well,
Oh,
even
okay. Okay, I think we lost Melanie. Weak connection, perhaps. Melanie, are you there? No. Okay, Melanie, if you can hear us, refresh your browser, and let's see if we can do that. So, in a moment, I'm going to bring on actually a caller, and hopefully Melanie will come back in the meantime. Ronald from Minnesota, you are on the air.
How you doing? And great show. I'll make it fast because I know we're running out of time. Great.
Wait, Ron, just wanted to give you a heads up. We lost Melanie. So is there a question that maybe we can both discuss?
Yeah. I wanted to ask about the experiencing the UFO experience. I haven't officially seen one that I could claim, because I have taken a picture of something. I don't know what it was. And somebody had pointed out the item that I had taken a picture of.
I think.
Hi, Melanie. And so what I wanted to know is this something that I should really be going after and trying to investigate and really evaluate what's going on, or should I just leave it alone and let it go and let the people that have had the experience explain their stories? Or
well, why don't you, Ron? Why don't you re-ask the question again now that we have Melanie back?
Okay. I haven't officially seen a UFO, and I'm trying to establish. I know a lot of people that have. I've interviewed some people that have, and I believe their stories. I believe there's something that's happening. I don't think that you wished any of your experiences to happen. I don't think that you were necessarily looking for anything to try to get into the middle of something. I'm actually trying to investigate this kind of thing, and I've interviewed, like I said, a few people on the subject, and I believe their stories. And I'm just trying to figure out, should I continue down this path and really take it seriously and really go all in and try to investigate these kinds of experiences, or should I step away and let the so-called professionals or the actual experiencers deal with the truth of the matter? And this is for everybody that wants to answer, Alan or Melanie.
Melanie, what do you think?
Are you saying that you yourself think that you've had an experience, or you know someone that did?
I've had a sleep paralysis, more on the paranormal type of experience, not necessarily an abduction, but I've had a sleep paralysis and a spiritual kind of an experience. And I don't know how to explain that one. That scared the crap out of me, and I didn't want to deal with that kind of thing ever again. But I do know that things do happen and things are real. And I just don't know if I should try to chase after this kind of a UFO experience. I know a lot of people that have had UFO experiences. I know a lot of different people that are state investigators and things like that. And they're very sincere in what they're doing and what they're trying to investigate. Should I just kind of let that? My curiosity is killing me as far as trying to figure this thing out.
I would suggest that you find a really good, I would do my research like I did, and I would find a really good post-traumatic stress disorder hypnosis person that works with people that are coming home from the war, people that work with police officers and rape victims, and not someone that it's a one-time thing, someone that does it that works with you before he hypnotizes you, or she that hypnotizes you. That's what I would do. And it has to be someone that's really qualified to do it.
Right. I think that your curiosity, of course, we're all curious about these things. I think that if you're going to go down that road, I think that you should responsibly commit to it, and not lightly flirt with it. Because, if you're going to get feedback from people, when good researchers, in my experience, have a lot of respect for the people that they're asking to help them and to give them information.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that to respect someone, you have to be there to commit to your investigation. If you're asking them to share their story, or to provide evidence, or to help you uncover a memory, or whatever it is.
I am willing to commit to the science, or the whatever it is that we're looking at. I really want to know what the answer is for my own personal belief. And I have met Tom Reed, and he is a really great guy, by the way. So anyway, thank you, Alan, again. Great show.
Yeah.
Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Melanie.
Thanks so much. Have a good night.
Okay.
All right. So, Melanie, we're at the end here. Would you like to leave us with any last words, maybe wisdom, or something that we haven't touched on?
I guess my words of wisdom are just believe in yourself. Don't listen to other people. Just have faith in yourself. Believe what you think is happening to yourself really is happening to yourself.
Right.
Don't listen to other people. Have faith.
All right. Thank you so much, Melanie. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Alan.
Yeah, have a good night.
Have a good evening.
Yes. Thank you. You too. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight on Paranormal Now on KGRA Radio, live every Saturday, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you want to find out more, you can find me on Twitter at paranormal_now, or on Instagram at paranormal now. And of course, all the other great KGRA radio shows. Just go to kgrradio.com and you can find out more there. And I know that coming down the pipe, we are expecting a new website to be fresh and updated and as funky as you can get. So hopefully we'll have that coming soon as well. This is a really exciting time to be a part of KGRA. And thank you once again for jumping over from the chat room to the YouTube stream and the Facebook stream as well. Please share tonight's show wherever groups, and let's keep this conversation going, because I know that, like Ron was saying, that we want to know. And I think one of the best ways to know is the communal aspect of it, of posting on each other's pages, commenting, sharing stories. And little by little, it's like we're getting these tiny pieces of this huge picture that I don't think we are even close to comprehending. But I enjoy each little step along the way to get there. So thank you again, and join us next week, 8 p.m., same time. Thanks to Bill Skywatcher, our producer. And until next time, live in the mystery.